everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and inside this game overview and gameplay video, I am excited to be checking out Fire for Light, a Titan World adventure. This comes from Greenbrier Games, and if you're familiar with this publisher, which you should be as a solo gamer, they put out games like Folklore, The Affliction, Lost Ones is another one I covered on the channel most recently, and that is incoming in the future, but this is their most recent entry coming to Kickstarter for March 22nd, so not that far away. And inside of this video, my aim is to help the solo community make an informed decision as to whether or not this game is a fit for you. It's worth mentioning that everything you're about to see here on the table is in prototype form, of course, so quality of the components and even anything you see on them art-wise or even text is all subject to change. Now, without further ado, let's find out a little bit more about what Fire for Light is all about. Well, it's a cooperative survival adventure dungeon crawl campaign game. Yes, that is a mouthful. There are 15 main chapters that tell a cohesive story, as well as other chapters you may unlock through choices you make and the outcome of other chapters you work through. Now, each explorer has a different play style as well as a personality and the character arc that you'll see over the campaign. Each chapter will have objectives on how to win and conditional information on what to do if you lose, but wish to move forward to the next chapter anyway. So, now that we have a little bit better of an understanding about the introduction for Fire for Light, let's go ahead and read the narrative that actually pulls us into the first tutorial for this prototype. Welcome to Summer's End. The village of Summer's End is struggling. Winter is here, but the worst is yet to come. Already, our villagers are struggling with rations. The time has come for us to send more explorers out into the world in an attempt to gather more resources so we can stockpile. Every day is a challenge, and we have our guards to thank for keeping out the dangerous woodland creatures and the bandits that would thoughtlessly steal our coffers and leave us nothing. There are many dangers, threats, and mysteries out in the waste, so hopefully you are prepared to face them. The fate of the village is in your hands. The prologue we're about to go through is called Catch a Falling Star. It's considered Act 1. The chapter is labeled as prologue. The time is labeled as daytime. It is not night right now. That will affect the day and night dial, which will adjust later on. There's no prerequisites for this one. The time to play is around 45 minutes. We're playing this solo, so it might go a little bit quicker than 45 minutes inside this video. And the difficulty, as is the tutorial, is considered easy. The village of Summer's End is hidden by the mighty frozen fingers, a series of mountains to the north dangerously unreachable through the permafrost canyon. Snow covers the world for as far as the eye can see. To the east, a mighty forest disappears into the base of the fingers. The villagers love that winter has hidden them from the bandits and other threats of the world, but in dire times those bandits inch ever closer, so the village elders began to ration out food and water to prepare for the coming months. Elder Moth declares a state of emergency and drafts new explorers from the villagers to help gather supplies. As if to mark this occasion that you've been drafted, a strange green streak tears through the morning sky. In the dimly lit council chambers, you gather with the elders to hear your first orders. Our coffers aren't barren, not yet, but Mull winter will last us quite a few months, and we are far from prepared to survive it. A scowl marches across Elder Wis's face. You have volunteered. The weather and the terrain are dangerous, and the strange Denzians and bandits more so, but the village has never been so desperate. Elder Wasp looks at his fellow elders. This is what we've got. Neri, your other daughter, a washed-up smith's apprentice with no hope to his future, and Elder Wasp looks at the moss-covered robot standing in the chambers. This monstrosity? Neri smiles up at him. Thank you, Elder Wasp. I'll do my best not to let you or the Lady of Fire down. Then her eyes flick around the room, and she sees her sister scowling next to her. Iris scowls. I've delayed my city guard training to help the village in another way. She pauses, looks at her sister, and then adds, and of course, to make sure my sister remains safe in the wastes. Jasper, the blacksmith's apprentice, pulls his fist tight together and puts it out in triumph. I'm eager to learn new skills that will help with my... Jasper, Elder Wisp sighs. After 7 years of apprenticeship, it's about time you extend your usefulness. Elder Wasp stings. Jasper lowers his eyes to the ground with a visible exhale. My maven is strict, and it is my time to offer help to the council. I'll never give up on my dream of building something that will help each of my fellow... Yes, Elder Wasp waves him off. That's well and good. And your companion, Elder Moth says, Uop, The robot thrusts his fist into the air, mimicking his companion Jasper. Elder Wasp crosses his arm to his chest and leans back with a displeased look on his face. I'm still not sure why we've let this monstrosity of a tin can walk around the village. He's made of iron, he doesn't require any food or anything to maintain, but he can still help by... Jasper grins. Explorers! A woman in elder robes. Elder Moth enters the chamber. A shooting star has been sighted. I know this is only your first day, but you must locate it. Neri and Iris beam, bouncing forward on their heels to see their mother. Elder Moth smiles at them in return. No words need to pass through to tell them how proud she is of her children. Elder Wasp grins from ear to ear. Yes, find this star and bring it to the statue of the Lady of Fire to offer it up as a blessing, a tribute, so that she may restore our magic and keep the village warm through Mallwinter. An offering, Elder Moth raises an eyebrow. No, we must bring the star back to the smith so that it can be fashioned into weapons or fuel. It would be a wonder to smelt in. Elder Wasp holds up a hand to cut Jasper off and considers the star tearing through the sky. A fallen star would be an excellent tribute to Penny, the Lady of Fire, to help us through these hard times. Perhaps a sacrifice to her will fill our coffers, and she will continue to provide the magic to keep our village warm and safe. Elder Moth stands from her chair, surveys her peers. That could also provide enough materials for tools and protection from the cold. It will keep us warm and help gather even more resources or outfit our guards with weapons and armors to keep the bandits at bay. We all know they've been gathering closer and closer to the village. No, we should use this to prepare and survive Mallwinter. Your group looks between the two, visibly confused. The elders bicker and come to no conclusion. Go, the Elder Moth says. Yes, find the star. We're wasting daylight. If you find it, I suppose it'd be your call. Elder Wasp winks at Nari. Yes, as explorers, you must make these decisions on your own. Now, everything you just heard around the narrative for this prologue came from the storybook. There will be a storybook included for Fire for Light where the majority, if not all, of the narrative around this game is going to be housed. And that's a companion piece for the game itself, which is really going to drive the campaign forward. There are some color-coded boxes within this storybook that will let you know things to do in terms of map setups and layouts. I've already gone ahead and set up this one for the tutorial, and it's told me where to place things to start things off. It also gives us a couple objectives I'll go over in a second. And of course, because this is a tutorial, there's a color-coded section giving you some extra detail about things to watch out for. So we have map tiles Forest 1, Forest 3, and Forest 4. It's worth mentioning these are double-sided tiles, but they're set up based on the chapter we're currently playing. The explorers are going to begin at the bottom region, and each region is basically a hex on one of these tiles. At the bottom region of Forest 1, so that's exactly where Uop is right now. We spawned a grub task at the lair on Forest 1, which is way up there at the top, and then we spawn a bandit scout on the lair in the Forest 3 and Forest 4. So you can see layers are indicated by the skull icon. And then based on the player count, you're going to set the spirit track to 7, 5, or 3. As I'm playing solo, it is going to sit on 7. We're going to place a strange meteorite, a green storybook marker, as we heard about when we were reading the narrative, in the bottom left region of Forest 4. So we got to make our way over there in order to interact with it. That leads us right into the objectives for this chapter, which is to go and find that strange meteorite and interact with it. So we have that marked, and if we reach 0 spirit or all explorers are exhausted, end the chapter and read a mess of things on page 9 of the storybook. We really want to avoid that. So our main goal here is to get to that green storybook icon. So as you already know, I'm controlling Uop, and because of that, the card that I have in the awareness row for Uop is the primary character card, and that one doesn't have any available action slots on it at all. The awareness is set at 6, and it is putting him straight in the middle-ish of this awareness row, which runs from left to right, highest to lowest. Now you'll see the Bandit Scout is going to be the first to activate when we eventually go through this awareness row, which you'll see when we move into gameplay. But I want to give you a heads up that as a solo player, you're controlling one character, but you in essence have a party of heroes with your explorers. So I still have Nari, I still have Jasper, and I still have Iris. They're just not physically represented on the actual game board itself, but all of their actions, as you can see straight on their cards, can be used. And you will see very, very soon that each of these individuals, when playing solo and controlling one character, are going to have 3 cubes placed on them and when they get to their turn, you are simply going to take their cubes off their card, giving you more cubes, which gives you more options to do on your turn. Now, Fire for Light is played over a series of rounds, and each round consists of 2 phases, the Explore phase and the Environment phase. So we're moving into the Explore phase first, which does touch on that awareness row that I just mentioned, starting with the left and moving over to the right. We're going to be resolving each and every card and activating any characters we happen to be controlling, or even potentially picking up cubes from individuals. So at this point in time, at the very beginning of the Explore phase, we're going to go ahead and place 3 cubes for each of the secondary characters involved in my party. And just like that, we're ready to begin. Now, it's worth mentioning the awareness level is the top right-hand numeric value, which you can see with the Bandit Scout, it's at 8 right now. But there are effects within the game that will flip these cards over, which will have impacts to the awareness level that can change the order in which these things sit in this row, which can absolutely change up the strategy of the game itself. We are going to start off with the Bandits. They're going to go first, and we'll take a closer look at their card to find out what they do. The first individual to activate has the highest awareness. The Bandit Scout is a Wanderer and Humanoid for those keywords. At a level of 8, just underneath of that value, there is a blue shield. That is for combat purposes. When you're attacking a Bandit Scout, you need to meet or exceed that value in order to kill that individual. Otherwise, you don't. There's no fiddly token usage in terms of tracking damage, turn, or attack after attack. You're going to just need to nail that number or exceed it to take them out. Now, on the bottom here, what we're focused on when we're activating a Bandit Scout is these black bars. And you'll see there are arrows between each of them. So we start at the very top and we work our way down. The first thing says stab, deal 1 damage to an explorer in my region. Well, there isn't any explorer currently in either of the 2 Bandit Scout regions. So you'll see that both of the bandits here and here don't have anybody in their region, so no damage being dealt. We'll talk about taking damage in the future. Next up on the Bandit Scout card, it says to seek, move 2 regions toward the nearest explorer. And after confirming with Greenbrier Games, this means to roll 2 dice. And this will be more clear in the final version. Essentially right now we roll 2 dice to determine how much movement these 2 Bandit Scouts have. We're going to roll these 2 dice, and however many swords we get on them is how much movement they have. So let's go ahead and roll the dice and find out exactly what we got here. That is going to be 2 swords, so each of them can move 2 spaces. Now, there's something else that's changed. You'll notice that this hex is elevated, and the reason I've done this is because it costs an additional movement when traversing between regions of different elevations. So if you're going down or up, it's going to cost you an extra movement. So this bandit right here is going to head towards me as I'm the only target, but it cannot cross any region that has a red border around it, which is good for me because it can't immediately hop from this region down here for 2 movement. It'll have to go the long way around. So the bandits are on their way towards me, and it's also worth noting that this red border does also apply to the explorers as well. Next up, we move to the very bottom row where it says startle. Any explorer in my region becomes startled. Well, that's good news for me because they weren't able to reach me. They're not going to startle me, but I will show you what that actually would have done. Now, the Bandits card references Startled as the effect. Now, when you are a monstrosity or a machine, you're not going to become startled. You're going to go from being functional to broken. And that's exactly what happens to Uop. In this case, it won't happen because that never resolved, as the Bandits never got into the same space or region as me. We'll flip this one back over, but now you've seen what it looks like on the opposite side. And you'll also notice the awareness changed, which does have an impact when you're setting up that awareness row in the future. Next up in line is a secondary character, Nari. I'm going to go ahead and take all 3 of the cubes off of this card. The cool thing to mention around this is that I can use these cubes just like I would my own green cubes for my main character and place them on any slot available as long as it's not one of the other secondary characters. So as Nari is activating here, we have 3 blue cubes to spend. I could choose to place them on Uop's character board. I can choose to place them on one of the items down below. If I choose to do that, the card goes from my hand, which I'm currently placing below the character board, up into the right-hand side of the player board where it says equipped. It'll go up there if I place a cube on one of these. I also have the availability to potentially make a campfire way up top on the main board. And you'll see that all you need to do is spend a cube and 1 wood resource in order to make a campfire, which then unlocks essentially a skill tree of choices, but you have to move through them top down per column, and you can take advantage of a number of different things around the campfire. And of course, you also have the option to use any of the slots available on Nari as well. So let's go through a number of these different actions that you have available to you. So assist is the very first one, which allows you to ready an ally, and then the ally gains a bonus action cube. You have explore down below. That's going to allow you, when you're in a region that does not have a letter number combination, like the one that I'm currently in right now. As you can see, the letter number combination are in a couple spots here, which progress through the storybook. If instead I'm here and I do an explore action, I then go to the main board and I draw a card off the item deck and populate it into the blueprint row. This gives me actual items I can potentially craft, and then those items can end up becoming a part of my character's loadout, which then can also be used for further actions during my turns, or it could also be used to mitigate damage coming at me. On Nari's card, third one down, you'll see gather 2. So if I happen to be on a space that has a resource icon, like this piece of wood resource here, or up in the mountain range area where there are some rocks, then I can collect a certain number of resources based on what number is associated with gather. And of course, you have move as well. It's worth mentioning with move that enemies and other individuals or explorers on the map do not block movement. The red bordered lines definitely stop you from traversing through them. You do have to pay the additional movement, as I mentioned earlier, if you're going up terrain or down terrain. And it's also worth mentioning that you can break up your movements. You can move once, do something else, and then move again afterwards with that same move. So if I do a move 2, I can move once, I can explore, and then move again. There's a whole bunch of options just on your character, your primary character's main board, as well as the items that are in your possession that you can choose to use. And it's worth mentioning, if you're doing an attack, you can go ahead and place one of the blue cubes in the attack position, gaining you 2 dice to roll towards getting enough swords to take down the shield value of the enemy you're going up against. But what's even cooler is you can combo different slots together so long as they are for the same action when it comes to an attack. So I could go ahead and place a blue cube here for 2 dice, and then another one down here for another 2 dice. And of course, as soon as I do that, I'd have to go ahead and place it on the equipped row on the right hand side. But it's worth noting, some of these cards have arrows in between them, so you have to do the top one first before you move down to the bottom one. You don't necessarily have to resolve the action that's up top if you don't really like it. You just want to move there, but you have to pay the cubes to get down to the level you're trying to get to in order to pull it off. So let's say I put 1 cube here, I put 1 here, and 1 here. That would allow me the availability to have 4 dice going into an attack, which certainly will help to take out the bandits, and it's likely what I'm about to do next. The first cube I'm going to use from Nari is a blue cube, which is going to go on Nari's card for a move 2. This is more movement than I need, but I'll use the rest of it afterwards. I'm going to move 1 into one of the regions with a bandit scout. Next up, I'm going to use the final 2 blue cubes in order to do an attack with 2 dice to roll. I'm activating the top ability of the precision attack, so that card comes out of my hand and goes into the equipped area now, and I can work my way down to the attack 2 later on if I wish. But this is going to add 1 sword to my attack rolls, which is pretty awesome. It's an active ability. Basically, it's passive while it's sitting here equipped. So let's go ahead and roll 2 dice and hope I get what I need to take out a bandit scout. Rolling the 2 dice and adding 1 sword into the fray for the passive ability that we have for precision attack is going to net us, oh my gosh, exactly what we needed. That is a 5, so that's going to take out the bandit scout in our region. The bandit scout has been defeated. We check the rewards tab or banner on the card, and it states we're going to be bumping up 1 spirit on the track from 7 to 8. We're feeling pretty good about ourselves these days. Things are going well. Spirits are being lifted. One thing to note is that you can keep cubes that you've accumulated from a secondary character and not spend them. I could have kept a couple of the blue cubes on my character board and just held on to them, and you'll see how that can benefit you at the very end of the explore phase. At this point, we now move to the next individual in the awareness row, and that is my primary character. Now, the one thing to note here is that any cubes I've accumulated from secondary characters up to this point, this activation, I'm free to use along with any cubes I actually have available for myself, which UOP has 5. So that's all I have right now because I spent the other 3 already. But the cool thing is when your character, your primary character activates, these cubes can go anywhere. And if you remember when I was explaining what Nari's cubes could do, they weren't able to go on the secondary characters, but UOPs can. So this really opens up a whole bunch of additional opportunities to do different actions, combo things together, and progress further into the campaign. I'm going to have Uop spend 1 green cube to place it on the Explore action slot for Nari in order to activate and explore in a hex or region that does not have a letter number combination that leads to a storybook resolve. This will allow us to pull one of the item blueprints, which potentially we could aim to try and craft later on. We paid the cube on the action slot for Nari, and you can see we've found Explorer's Boots. As you can see at the bottom of the card, it says craft, and that's 1 leather icon. So if we want to try and make this, we need to find some leather. Now, taking a look at the area that we are currently in this tutorial, there isn't anything that will produce us leather that's visible on any of these hexes currently. So we might need to dig through some more blueprints to find something we can actually gather within this area. Now, the one thing I will mention is there are certain animals that can provide that particular resource, and it may not be something you gather straight from the game board itself. And so I'm going to show you at the very tail end of the awareness track, there is one enemy that we could take down in order to craft these boots. We get as a reward a piece of leather, and that's the leather we need to try and create or craft the Explorer's Boots blueprint that we just have available in our blueprint row. So we might want to change course from heading towards the green storybook marker and actually head north to where the grub tusk is. Now again, the grub tusk will most likely move towards us on its turn based on the AI you can see here, but we could just run after it and try to interact with it much sooner. Honestly, I can't see why not. Let's go ahead and move 3, and we're going to head towards the grub tusk, which is 3 regions away from us. So Uop and the explorers are heading over to Grub Tusk, which you can see is in a lair location, as well as having a resource, the ability to get wood from this area if we wanted to try and gather. However, our primary focus is to try and take this Grub Tusk down, because I really want to be able to build those explorers boots. There's some nice benefits it could give me, as well as some defense against potential attacks and damage that come towards me in the future. I'm going to have Uop use 2 green cubes, one of them on the bottom section of the precision attack, which is currently equipped for 2 dice. Remember, we still have the active adding of 1 sword to the roll, so we have 2 dice plus a free sword going into this, and then I've also placed another green die to combo this and make it even more powerful up on Jasper for 2 more dice into the pool. So now we're rolling 4 dice with an additional sword on the side. So we're going to go ahead and roll now 4 dice plus an additional sword. Let's see how we do. Okay, I was worried there for a second. That last one rolled over a 3. So we have 3, 4, 5, 6, plus 1 is 7. That is mass overkill. That Grub Tusk is dead, and we're going to gain a leather resource. Now, as I pivoted, and because of finding the explorer's boots and wanting to go north and take out the Grub Tusk, I did so early, and because of this, I'm going to avoid this activation from happening, but I want to talk you through how this one works, because each and every enemy in the game, including some of the more powerful ones beyond this tutorial, are going to have very different aspects, and they're going to use tokens and other things in order to bolster their attacks, and you're going to have to strategically choose who you take down and when in order to try and stay alive. So you can see here the Grub Tusk at the very bottom, if it was to activate, would have a charge which would deal damage equal to the rage tokens on the card to an explorer in the same region. Then it would enrage. If he's in a region with an explorer, it would gain a rage token, thereby in the future increasing how much nastiness is coming my way. And then it would waddle. It would move one region towards the nearest explorer. So it's going to constantly be bolstering itself up, and then it uses these rage tokens which you drop on it to make things even more interesting as time goes on. So I'm pretty happy that Grub Tusk is no more. I've gone ahead and taken the 1 resource, which is leather, and at this point, Uop has 1 available cube left, which I could use right now in order to craft, and I think I'm going to do exactly that. Thanks to the craft ability, which is on Jasper, I've gone ahead and paid that 1 cube, the last one that I have to spend for Uop's turn. I'm going to use the leather I just received in order to pay the craft amount for those explorer's boots, and now I can go ahead and take this card for Uop. When you craft something, it immediately goes into your hand, and what's really awesome about crafting things inside this game is they serve two purposes. One, you're getting more options at your disposal to use, but even more important is you're getting a shield icon or potentially more shield icons to be used in defense against attacks coming after you. So when you do take damage as an explorer, you have to discard cards from your hand with the number of shields at least equal to the amount of damage that you're taking, and if for any reason you can't discard those shields, the character you're controlling becomes exhausted. You're going to tip your explorer over onto its side, you're going to lose spirit, and of course any excess damage dealt to an exhausted explorer laying over is lost in spirit. So you can see how that track, the spirit track, can go from being very high to quite low if you get into that kind of situation. Something else worth mentioning is that exhausted explorers no longer place action cubes during the excise step. The exhausted explorers are allowed to pick up all of their cards from their discard pile and stand back up. Exhausted explorers also pick up all their cards if they're in the same region as a campfire. So that's where campfires and making a campfire can be very handy. Next up, we have Jasper activating, and we're going to get 3 yellow cubes we can use anywhere we want except for on other secondary characters. I've chosen to go ahead and use a Gather 2 off of Jasper's card. This allows me to gather 2 resources based on the icon there, which is wood. I'm going to use a cube and place it on Jasper's card for the action Explore, and as there is no storybook entry here, I'm going to go ahead and draw an item card and put it into the blueprint row. I found the blueprints for Spear of the Guard. This is an item that allows me, when I have a cube in the active slot there, enemies in your region get a -2 on their defensive value. That's really good. And I can also use it to bolster attacks or make attacks with 2 dice. Pretty awesome. I do need 2 resources to craft this, and currently I only have 2 wood, so I satisfy one of the wood requirements, but I still need stone. I can find this in certain regions on the game board. With the final yellow cube, I'm going to go ahead and explore again, placing it on the explore action on UOP's character board. Not bad at all. We got ourselves some more options here. This one is a smaller hunting knife that doesn't need as much to craft, but I still need stone, and that's something I don't have right now. That concludes Jasper's activation. We move on to Iris. I'm grabbing these 3 cubes, and again, can use them on this card anywhere else except for secondary characters. I'll go ahead and use a move 1 to get myself into an area where stone can be found. Let's have UOP move 1 space southeast. I think what I'll do while I'm here is I'm going to equip my Explorer gloves there. At the very top, I've placed a red cube for Explorer. This will allow me to grab another blueprint from the area and place it in the row. It appears I found an iron ring blueprint, which can allow me to gather, which is quite nice. But you also notice the defense in terms of blocking damage on that card is much higher than my other weapons. So trade-offs to be found here strategically. Honestly, with just a single cube remaining, I'm going to hold on to this so I can talk about what I can use cubes for that I still have in my possession at the end of the Explore phase. We're now done the Explorer phase. We now move into the Environment phase. This is where the weather and terrain are fighting back against the Explorers. We take a look at the day and night dial. This will let us know how many dice we're rolling. For our check, I'm going to be rolling 1 die currently. What would increase that, though, would be if I'm standing in any other region that has one of those snowflake and triangle icons. For every one of those that you see in the region you're standing, you add an additional die to the exposure roll. Now, after you roll, each player, or myself in this case playing solo, can choose dice to reroll, and for each instance of warmth, an explorer has the ability to reroll a single die during the reroll. And it's worth mentioning that when playing solo, if you are in a region with a campfire, you are considered to have 1 warmth, which can certainly help you out in that regard. And of course, the overall roll is looking for swords, but you want to make sure that you don't get more swords than the total number of action cubes that you have. Otherwise, you suffer 1 exposure, and when an explorer actually suffers that exposure, they take 1 of their action cubes and exile it. It's gone. Now, early in the game, the exposure is not going to come after you that harshly, but as you progress the game and the dial ticks up more and more and more, plus the fact you could be exposed to the elements, the chances of actually getting that increase over time. So we should be safe, and are likely safe on this roll. We only got 2, and that is far under the total number of cubes that I have. The next step is the Extinguish step. We remove the campfire token if there was one from the map, so the fire goes out. Other tokens placed until the end of the round at this point are remove. If you're indoors, extinguish the next torch token. If you're outdoors, you're rotating the light dial to the next highest value, making that exposure check next time that much more fun. The day dial has been moved to 2, and now we move to the excise step, the final step of this phase, where we take a look at any unused cubes that we have. We have one of them, it's red, so I can go ahead and cash this in right now, either for an inspiration token that can help me to convert one of these symbols on the die that are not swords into a sword, or I can choose to take +1 awareness. I have a choice here. I'm going to go ahead and choose to cash in the one unused cube I didn't use for a inspiration. I'm using these white cubes to represent them. To end off this excise step, we now take a look at the awareness row, and if there was anyone that had flipped over to their startled side, or if Uop had flipped over to his broken side, there could have been changes across these cards, and the awareness order from left to right going highest to lowest could have shaked up, and if it does, then you can choose to reposition things. As of right now, nothing is going to change. We're going to leave it exactly the way it was. You'll also notice I went ahead and flipped over the animal that we took out earlier in the game. Now, there is times where these animals could come back out or respawn, so don't necessarily take the card and chuck it out of the equation. Flipping it over is not a bad idea, as it could come back. Next, each of the explorers that you're controlling are going to have all their equipped cards moved to the discard pile, so I've done that, moving them from here to here. All 5 of the cubes for Uop have come back to be ready and used again. We still have the 1 inspiration there, and all of the secondary individuals or explorers as part of the party have their 3 cubes placed back on their awareness cards. So starting off a brand new round here in the awareness row, Bandit Scout goes first, and we know that they're going to deal damage to an explorer in their region. There isn't one right now. We move to the next thing, which is Seek. Moving 2 regions, we're rolling 2 dice to determine how much movement we have, and we got ourselves 3, and that is going to be enough in order to move the Bandit Scout from where it currently is right to our explorer. And next up it says any explorer in the region is going to become startled. As I mentioned earlier in the video, Uop is a machine, a monstrosity, so he becomes broken, he flips over, and his awareness has changed. Now, something to mention around combat that you haven't seen happen yet, but if I make an attack and I actually don't get the swords I need equal to the shield level of the enemy I'm trying to attack, I take a retaliation damage. So this is again why you want to have items that can help you to deal with damage coming back at you when you fail attacks, because not only can you be attacked through the AI of a card or other game mechanisms, you could also just take retaliation damage from a missed attack. Next in the awareness row is Nari. We're going to take the 3 cubes, and I'm going to likely use them to do a lot of movement. I decided to place a cube on the move 3 on my character's board. Nari is also going to use an Explorer action on her card, and this is going to allow me to move 3 down south to the A03 location to interact and explore here. A statue of Pane, the Lady of Fire, looms over the freezing plains. Snow dusts her shoulders, and the gusts of wind cause the flakes to dance around her. Snow melts off the statue. As you near, heat emanates from the rocky surface, a nice respite from the cold. Around the statue's base are offerings, small chips of wood with names or wishes scrawled on the bark. Some of the gifts are more illustrious, handwritten poems on ribbon tied to her feet, and ornate drawings on thin hide. As you pass by, you whisper a small prayer to the lady to bless your first outing and give you the tools necessary to make powerful choices. Gusts of wind carry snow, and almost as if in a response to you hear a whisper, the whisper of confidence and power. The lady shows favor to you. If you are Nari, which I am not, I'm actually Uop, you may place a campfire in any adjacent region. Also, in addition to this, it states to gain a bonus action. We definitely can get that. So at this point, I have the bonus action cube, which is brown on my character board. It's also worth mentioning the story that I just read by exploring A03. I paid the blue cube in order to do that. At this point, I'm going to stop spending cubes. We're going to be done with Nari's activation. We go to Uop, which allows me to now have all of those green cubes plus that bonus cube to use across anything in play. I'm going to go ahead and use a cube on Explorer Boots for move 2, as well as one on the bottom of Nari's card for another move 2, which will give me enough to get from A03 to A04. So we'll be moving 1 closer to the elevated terrain, then 2 to get up on top of it, and another 1 to get to A4. Now that I'm here, I'll use a green cube on Jasper to explore, and we'll go and look inside the storybook for A04. Bandits seem to have set up camp here. By the looks of it, they've been here for quite a while. Why are they so close to the village? That's not normal. The camp is littered with broken weapons and rotted food. Where did this all come from? Other villages? It's not like the bandits have a central location. They're nomads. These wanderers roam the forest and the nearby canyon living off scraps. Now, the only point of interest you find is a piece of parchment with a note with childlike scribbled handwriting. It says, "Something's wrong with Seada," and this is written by Andri. You've heard of Andri before. He's a mighty bandit warrior and a menace within these woods. If he's near, it's best to keep a low profile and only take what you need. It states here in the storybook, place the top 2 item cards into the blueprint row, then gather leather resource, and then we check the Andri box in the prologue summary page. The first blueprint that came out is the one on the far right-hand side. It is the hunting bow. It's an item. It allows you to attack with 2 dice in an adjacent region, so that's really handy. You can do long-range hits, and it also has assist as well. Now, we do get to gain another blueprint, so in this situation, we can choose to discard one of the blueprints that are in this row if we want to populate it with something else. So in other words, we take a look at these blueprints and we go, well, there's probably something in here we don't really want. We can go ahead and discard it and draw that second blueprint we gained. I end up deciding to discard the hunting knife as there's already a spear of the guard in there that I think I like more, and we got ourselves the hide shield as the second blueprint, so that's a really nice one to see. Another one with 2 defense on it. The other thing that we gained through the storybook when we read that entry was we're supposed to check the Andri box in the prologue summary page. I'm going to show you that on screen right now, just in terms of how it looks roughly, to give an idea as to what you expect to find in the final version of the game. These are some things you'll be tracking as you explore through the narrative and interact with things that will have ripple effects on your campaign. I still have 3 cubes left to spend, and those explorer boots have a pretty cool effect on them. At the bottom it says explore, and if you're on a moment, become ready. And all I need to do to get to the green storybook is to move 1, which I do have on Iris. So I'm going to place 1 cube to move 1 up there on the orange card, and then 1 on the bottom of the explorer boots, and that will allow us to interact with the green token. Plus I get the ability to flip Uop from his broken side to his readied side. Just like that, we're all squared away. Let's go ahead and move Uop on the main board and interact in the storytelling book. Buried under several feet of snow, steam rises from the fist-sized chunk of translucent green stone. A trail of melted snow lies in its wake, deeper and deeper as it skidded across the ground. For the first time in your life, you see the dirt beneath the snow. Caked brown mud was frozen under years of winter. You expect the stone to be hot, but the snow has cooled it off quite a bit already. You pick it up and throw it in your bag, ready to return. In the distance, you hear crunching footsteps and shouts. The bandits must have been looking for the fallen star as well. Then you remember Elder Moth's instructions. You must choose, and you'd better hurry. Elder Wasp wanted you to bring the star back to the village to use as materials to defend against the bandits. Elder Moth wanted you to bring the star to the statue of Pani as a sacrifice to her blessing over the village. You have found the star. At this point, it states to spawn a bandit scout on each layer in Forest 3 and Forest 4. Now you must choose who to deliver the star to. You then place the red storybook marker on region A03 with the statue of Pani. If you want to side with Elder Wasp and make the star a sacrifice, you explore the red storybook marker. Then you place the blue storybook marker on the bottom region of Forest 01. If you want to side with Elder Moth and return to the village to use the star as materials to survive, explore the blue storybook marker. As you can see, we have 2 new bandits that have shown up, but we also have 2 storybook locations we can go to. We have to choose which one we want to go and interact with based on the 2 choices I just presented. So we get back into our regular turn here. We were on Uop's turn. He has 1 available cube left. The question is, do I want to use it, or do I want to continue activating individuals across the awareness row? With my final green cube, I'm going to place it on craft at the bottom of Jasper's card. This will allow me to spend 1 wood, which I have, to craft the hunting bow. With that now in my hand, we're going to go ahead to the next individual in the row of awareness, and that is going to be Jasper. I'm going to collect the 3 cubes and choose where I want to place them. Now, I've also gone ahead and spent the 1 wood I should have spent the second that I went ahead and built the hunting bow, so we're all squared away there. Now, I've looked at my options here across what I have, and honestly, I've burnt all of my movement, looking at different options in terms of attacking too far away currently to any bandit to do that. I don't have any movement to generate to get closer. I have a recharge ability here on UOP that could be really cool in order to pull back a discard card, as well as some other features of that action, but even in my discarded pile, I don't have any cards that will help me with movement at this point, so I'm going to have to sit tight. And what's bad about that is I'm in a location with one of those frost icons. We already know the day and night tracker's up to 2, plus the frost icon. I'm rolling 3 dice on the next exposure check, which is a little high, so what I might do is make a campfire. I spent the action cube, spent the last wood that I have, made the campfire. I place a campfire marker, which is represented in this prototype as a red cube for me, in the location that I'm currently sitting in. With 2 yellow cubes remaining, I'm going to probably stop right there, and at this point we're going to move over to Iris's turn. That will give me 3 more cubes. And I'm honestly going to sit tight with all of these because I'm planning on cashing them in to bump up my awareness, as well as gathering some more cubes for inspiration. Jumping into the environment phase, exposures first. We have 2 on the dial. We have 1 of these frost icons in here, so that's a total of 3 dice to roll. I may have misspoken before when I said if I had a fire down. I might have said that I get to reduce the number of dice. It's not reducing the dice, it's allowing you to re-roll a die for each instance of warmth, and campfire is warmth. That's exactly what this game's all about, is staying warm. So we're going to go ahead and roll these 3 dice, and I can re-roll one of them, whichever one is the worst. Let's see how we do. Okay, that's pretty good. So we got 1, and we don't even, I think we're going to be all right. Oh, I actually made it worse. Okay, but still, we're fine because our total number of action cubes do not exceed that value. The fire in my region is extinguished, and the day tracker goes up from 2 to 3. I went ahead and exchanged the 5 cubes I had left over. 3 of them I used to bump my awareness all the way up to 9, and then I used the last 2 to gather 2 more inspiration tokens. This is going to ensure that when we start off the next round of play, I'm going first, and I can likely head to one of the storybook locations before the bandit scouts pounce on me. I've also gone ahead and reset everything regarding a typical round prior to moving into an explorer phase, so we're ready to go. Something else worth mentioning, you're probably wondering, how do you get those discarded cards back into your hand? Well, there are rest actions available. Sometimes you're going to see them on cards you may have yourself, but in most cases they relate to the campfire that you build at the very top. When making a campfire, you can actually gain access to this rest action, which will allow you to bring back your discarded cards into your hand. So I will mention this too, Uop does have a recharge ability that's really handy that can allow him to pull back 1 discarded card into his hand. So there are other ways you'll find beyond just, using a campfire or resting in order to bring back that deck. So don't think they're lost forever. Right out of the gates, we can begin with Uop's turn as he is first in the initiative row. I know what I want to do. Out of the 2 options that I have here, I want to go and interact with the statue, which is on Forest 03. Now it's going to take me 1, 2, and then 1, 2 movement to get down off of the top level tile that I'm on, and then another 1 after that to get to the location I need to go. So that is going to be a total of 5 movement. And let's see if I can generate that. There's absolutely no concern with that whatsoever. Now, it's also worth mentioning, if you're playing through this in a campaign fashion, you may not want to beeline it straight to the storybook entry. You might want to sit around and take out some of these bandit scouts, because remember, you get rewards such as boosting your spirit, or potentially if you're attacking some other creature, you might get a resource. So in purposes of this tutorial, I'm jumping right to the end of the tutorial, but you could easily take a look at all the bandits that are out here in play and start picking away at some of them, potentially gaining resources where you'd like to, in order to further bolster yourself going into the next chapter of the campaign. So Uop is going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in order to get to the red storybook. Uop has moved to the storybook marker, which is red, and now we're going to use an explore action, which I've placed a green cube there up there on Nari. You can see it in the top right. We're going to interact with this token in the storybook. You set the rock at the foot of the statue. Somehow it looks taller and looms over you. The woman has a long face and pulled back hair decorated in the elders' same robes. It's impossible to tell her age. She seems wizened, but she has no wrinkles. Penny provided the first villagers with fire and taught them to burn wood. Every night, the elders perform a secret prayer to the Lady of Fire that lights up the village with red and orange embers to keep you warm. The rock sits there, unmoving. You feel the heat from the statue slowly warming showing up. The lady is pleased with your offering. At this point, it states to check the offer, the star box, in the prologue summary page. So again, referencing that prior prologue summary page where what you choose to do as part of your campaign is tracked. Then it says to read Homecoming on page 10. The elders crowd around a crescent-shaped table that fits all 7 of them. In the center, Elder Moss smiles at you. You had quite the first day of exploring. She folds her fingers together. I'm proud of the agency you showed. Making a choice is never easy. I only pray it was the right choice. We did what we thought was right for the village, Neri replies. That's the goal of the explorers, right? We dedicate our lives to bringing in resources and such for the villagers. Just like our guards, Iris nods towards Kayla, a city guard by the hall door. They dedicate their lives to protecting us from bandits. Kayla's attention is briefly distracted by the mention, and her focus makes Iris's heart melt. And the Smiths take the resources to make living easier for our villagers, or protection from the cold, or weapons and repairs for the guards. Next to her, Elder Wasp gestures with his hand. On with it. We haven't got all night. We still need to make our prayer before it gets too cold. Now show us what you've brought so that we may record it and put it in the coffers to ration to the villagers. At this point, the tutorial says, congratulations on finishing the prologue of Fire for Light. Now, during this portion, the work you did during the game will be recorded and might be used as rewards or punishments and affect future games. While reading the endings to each chapter, you'll be asked to read some small passages to resolve your story and record your progress on the chapter summary page. You can find each summary page at the end of the associated chapter you're reading. Remove any remaining enemies from the map and place them back in the box. Read each bullet point below from top to bottom, and there's a bunch of them. In the associated sections, you're going to do what they say, and then read the next in the list. You'll need to have the chapter summary page handy while filling this out. Now, the first thing it says inside the storybook here is total the number of resources and item cards your team has. Then write that value in the village resources box on the prologue summary page. So exactly what I said earlier when I kind of zipped right to the red storybook option. It is worth your while to go ahead and try to gather more resources before finishing off a chapter. For the purposes of the play, though, I've shown you everything you need to see to hopefully make an informed decision. Next thing it states here is if you marked the return the star box, add 2 to that total. And if you write 4, 6, or 8 or more, read the Gatherer on page 8. Otherwise, you read the Elders on page 8. And then it says, write your spirit in the spirit box on the chapter summary page. You're recording a lot of different aspects of your current progress. And then finally, return all the components of the box. In future chapters, you may need to refer to the information written on the summary page. It serves as a reflection of how well you've done and the choices you've made along the way. Now that you've finished the prologue, you're going to open a new box, box number 1. At this point, it's going to give you something in that box that's going to be a nice surprise. But currently, that is all I'm going to go through in terms of this tutorial. And that, my friends, is going to wrap up this game overview and gameplay video for Fire for Light from Greenbrier Games. Again, this is coming on March 22nd, and I really hope this look at the tutorial and how it moves, operates, and flows really helps you to understand what this game is all about, gives you a quick snippet, and also want to mention the fact that this tutorial is on easy mode, and also it's just a snippet of what you can expect in a typical chapter. Again, they're just trying to get you into the basics of the system and how the game flows, and then of course, the game is going to span beyond that as you move through the chapters and go through your campaign. I really like what's going on here in terms of solo play because even though you're only controlling a single character, you're in essence controlling a group of explorers and have options across all of the secondary cards that really bolster all the choices you have. I mean, you have item cards to use, your own character mat, the secondary characters cards, you have the campfire area, you have the ability to build blueprints at will based on resources that you find in the land. You're progressing through an overarching story. There's really a lot here, and what's cool is it's not fiddly. The combat doesn't resolve itself with a whole bunch of tokens that have you having to keep track of things round over round for how much damage you've done. Things like that I really like. It helps you focus on the parts of the game that are really fun. With all that being said, I've only played the prototype, but I can tell you right now, I'm highly and even more intrigued than I was when I originally saw this thing announced that it was coming to crowdfunding at this point in time after actually playing it on and off camera. I definitely am of high interest on this one, and I'm really excited to see what the campaign offers beyond what's here in the prototype. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below if this video was helpful to you, and be sure to join us on Patreon, inside the Rolling Solo community on Facebook, Facebook. We have a large Facebook group there as well. We're also active on Discord as well. There's a number of different areas you can find, all at the top of the pinned comment. Thanks again, and as always, keep on rolling solo.